Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com, produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built, by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, and by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Here on the Cup of Joe political show, we are joined by Steve Greenberg. Steve Greenberg, Siena College, at Siena College outside Albany. He's a pollster there. And Steve Greenberg, welcome back to here over at Westchester Talk Radio and Cup of Joe political show, and the newest numbers that over at Siena and the Siena Polling Institute, the numbers you have gathered for us over the past few weeks, the key issues affecting people around New York State. The first one, the main topic, seems to be crime as the main concern.
Yeah, and it's great to be with you again, John, as always. The whole issue one of the main issues that's being talked about as the legislature and governor are trying to wrap up the budget, which is already several days late, and dominating discussion in Albany is the talk about the bail law, the law that was passed in 2019. And we asked voters, do you think that law to eliminate monetary bail for people facing misdemeanor and nonviolent felony charges has been good for New York, or has it been bad for New York? And right now, only 30% of New Yorkers say that law has been good for New York. 56%, almost twice as many, think the law has been bad for New York. But what's really interesting, let's take a step back and go back 3 years in time. In April of 2019, right after the legislature and then Governor Cuomo passed the bail law, we asked voters virtually the same question. We said, the governor and legislature just passed a new law to eliminate monetary bail for people facing misdemeanor and nonviolent felony charges. Do you think this law will be good for New York or bad for New York? And at the time, numbers were flipped. 55% of New Yorkers thought this was going to be a good law for New York. Only 38% thought it was going to be a bad law. Democrats overwhelmingly back then, nearly 2/3 of Democrats thought the law would be good for New York. 60% of independents thought the law would be good for New York. Republicans, even then, 55%, a majority, said the law would be bad for New York. And today, 84% of Republicans, 61% of independents now say the law has been bad for New York. Democrats, still a plurality, 48% of them think that the law has been good for New York. 38% say the law has been bad. But we do see a large divide when we look at it by race. 60% of white voters think the law has been bad for New York. Black voters, evenly divided, 43 or closely divided. 43% say the law has been bad. 40% say the law has been good. Latino voters, 45% say the law has been bad. 39% say the law has been good. Where you really see a huge divide, age. Young voters, those voters 35 and under, 53% of them think the bail law has been good for New York. But among my age group, the 55 and older, 66% say the law has been bad for New York.
So this makes you wonder about Governor Hochul and her re-election chances, and you ran some numbers on those. How much would this crime issue affect those numbers for Kathy Hochul? Is she moving up or is she moving downward now? The more she is in office, the more voters get to see her, and maybe they don't like as much what they liked when she first stepped in for Andrew Cuomo.
Well, it's interesting. Governor Hochul's numbers have remained largely steady, not great, not bad, but given that she is, barely a half year, a little more than a half year into being the governor, being that she's never stood for election as governor, these numbers, I think, give her, her and her people some pause. Again, they're not bad, but they're not great. Right now, 45% of New Yorkers view her favorably. 35% of New Yorkers view her unfavorably. You still have 20% who either have never heard of her or don't know enough about her to have an opinion. But her numbers with Democrats are very strong. 67% of Democrats view Hochul favorably. 17% view her unfavorably. Her job performance remains underwater. Only 42% say she's doing an excellent or good job as governor, compared to 53% who say she's doing only a fair or poor job. But again, Democrats, she does much better there. 63% of Democrats give her credit for doing an excellent or good job as governor. So
now, you put to the test the Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, question against Russia's Vladimir Putin. I would think this would be a knockout for Zelensky.
Yeah, absolutely. What we did is we asked, do you, just like we ask of Governor Hochul or President Biden or anybody else, we asked, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view? And right now, 70% of New Yorkers say they have a favorable view of Vladimir Zelensky. 13% have an unfavorable view. 16% either have never heard of him or don't have an opinion. And there is no partisan divide here. 72% of Democrats, 71% of Republicans, 67% of independents say they view Zelensky favorably. Vladimir Putin, however, not so much. Only 6% of New Yorkers view Putin favorably. 88% view him unfavorably. Sets the all-time new high unfavorable rating in a Siena College poll going back now nearly 2 decades. Previous record, former Congressman Anthony Weiner held the record for worst unfavorable rating. He was at 80%, but Putin blew him out of the water at 88%. You have to wonder, though, John, who are those 6% who view Putin favorably? And I'll put it in another vein. We talked about young people on the bail reform law a minute ago. Of voters 35% and younger, 17% of those voters have a favorable view of Vladimir Putin.
Interesting. I guess we could sum it up and say Zelensky, da, Putin, niet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, or as I phrased it, you know, cheers for Zelensky and Bronx cheers for Putin.
There we go. And you're a Brooklyn guy originally, right?
I was Queens originally.
Queens. There you go. All right, kind of in the middle between the Bronx and Brooklyn there. So.
Yeah, exactly. Although yeah. I grew up about a mile and a half from Shea Stadium, but was a Yankee fan from birth.
How do you like that? We'll get to the Mets and Yankees. We know you ran some numbers on that also, too, the Bronx Bombers and the amazing Steve Greenberg, Siena Polling Institute, Siena College, outside Albany. The gas tax, New York State, the gas tax with gas prices shooting all over. Now, I drove yesterday around the tri-state areas in Westchester, the Bronx and Queens, all the way out in Nassau and Suffolk County as well, too. I saw prices range from about $3.80 a gallon, which I found kind of low right now. And one place, and I think in Queens it was, I think in the Bayside area near the Whitestone Bridge. And then out in Suffolk, you had prices ranging as high as about $4.70 a gallon.
Well, up here where I am in Clifton Park, a northern suburb of Albany, I paid $4.25 this morning.
I paid $4.27 in Manorville off exit 70 of the LIE. That's what I did. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of a happy medium. What do New Yorkers think about the gas tax to help alleviate maybe, or getting rid of the gas tax to help alleviate all this?
Well, one of the proposals, again, during the budget that is late but still being negotiated up here in Albany is a proposal to suspend, at least temporarily, the 16 cents that New York State tax on gas. And not shockingly, John, 70% of New Yorkers support that idea. A quarter, 24%, oppose it. But you and I often talk about these issues that have these huge partisan divides, and I can find you some of them as well. But we talked about an issue before where there was no partisan divide. Here's another one. 70% of Democrats, 75% of Republicans, 66% of independents say, yeah, please suspend the gas tax, save me that 16 cents a gallon.
To-go alcohol was big during the height of the pandemic, and then we got rid of it, and there's been a lot of talk about bringing it back. Are New Yorkers in favor of being able to go into a bar, into a restaurant, not have to sit there and have a drink, but order up and take it home?
Yeah, but not overwhelmingly. Look, Governor Hochul made this a major proposal when she came out with her budget back in January, thought it was going to, enjoy widespread public support. It's got public support, but it also has a lot of pushback from some in the industry, liquor stores, etc., who are not thrilled about it. But right now, 50% of New Yorkers say they support it. 41% oppose it. When we asked back in January, it was a little bit more supported, 55% to 34%. So a little bit tighter. Here we see a little bit of a partisan divide, but not huge. And I would say the partisan divide here is probably more geographic than anything. So 57%, Democrats supported 57 to 35%. Republicans break even, 46-45, and independents dead even, 45-45. But when we look at it by region, New York City supports it, 56 to 34. The burbs, the downstate suburbs, support it 47-41. Upstate, break even, 46-47. So it seems to be, I think the downstaters like it more than the upstaters. The Democrats like it a little bit more than the Republicans and independents. But I don't think New Yorkers are going to lose sleep whether this one gets done in Albany or not.
Daylight savings time. Might this be something that we have all the time?
Well, I don't know. There's a proposal in Washington. I think it's passed one house. I think it passed the Senate.
It did.
And waiting to see what's going to happen in the House. And New Yorkers support it. 2/3 of New Yorkers, 67%, say they'd like to get rid of standard time and have daylight savings time year round. A quarter, 25%, say they oppose it. Interestingly, every demographic supports it. By race, by age, by gender, by income, by party, etc. At least 59% of every demographic supports it. The high is 79% who support it. But what's interesting are the two extremes. The lowest support, quote unquote, lowest support, is among Black voters at 59%. The highest support is among Latino voters at 79%.
Steve, I'm a Mets fan from the Bronx. You're a Yankees fan from Queens. How did we get this way? Or maybe more likely, we should ask, how did we get this way around the state of New York and the numbers with the Mets and the Yankees, which I know you can break down closer to home geographically, too?
Sure. Well, overall, among all voters across New York, not surprisingly, because this has been true for a long time, probably most of my lifetime, most of the Mets' lifetime, there are more Yankee fans than Met fans. Right now, 40% of New Yorkers say they're Yankee fans, 21% say they're Mets fans, 7% say they're fans of another team. And I could tell you up in the great northeastern part of this state, we do unfortunately have our share of Red Sox fans. And another 29% of New Yorkers say they really are not fans of baseball at all. If we look at it by region, New York City looks like the state, 42% Yankee fans, 23% Met fans. Upstate, overwhelmingly Yankee territory, 41% Yankee fans, 10% Met fans. One of my best friends up here is a Met fan who now you can listen to it anywhere. But 10 years ago, used to be very upset that you couldn't get Met games on the radio up in Albany. You can get Yankee games on the radio up in Albany. But in the downstate suburbs, break even. It's where Met and Yankee fans, go to extra innings, because 36% of those who live in the downstate suburbs say they're Yank fans. 34% say they're fans of the Mets.
Dead heat pretty much there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or as my father said to me last week when I mentioned him about some celebrity, I forget who, said he's a Mets fan. And my father looked at me and said, well, at least they have one. Now he's a Yankee fan. And I said, well, what about me? Makes it two, I guess, right? And the point about the Red Sox, I want to point out that yesterday I had the honor of being out at Bridgehampton High School on Long Island and opening up the new baseball field. And we did from the Suffolk County Sports Hall of Fame. We put a marker in the ground, a big plaque honoring Carl Yastrzemski, product of Bridgehampton High. We had a ceremony for him there, honoring him yesterday. He's down in Florida. He could not make it. So, and interesting about what you pointed out about how people root around the state. The feeling amongst people out that way is I'm a Mets fan or a Yankees fan. Some of the older generation, like my father, he'll hope the Mets do well, just not better than the Yankees. They kind of root for both. But as one person pointed out to me, when it comes to Yaz, we all root for him, even Yankee fans too. So
look, I have been a Yankee fan. I watched Yaz as a kid as a Yankee fan. Triple Crown winner, although not with the best batting average among Triple Crown winners. If I remember correctly, it was
67
99 or
67.
Yeah.
Yep.
But look, as a Yankee fan, I hate the Red Sox. I love the passion of Red Sox fans, and you got to recognize the greats. Whether it's for me, a great Red Sox Met in Pedro Martinez, a great Red Sox in Big Papi, and a great
Eric Jeter,
one of the all-time best
Red Sox fans when he retired. Mariano Rivera too.
Exactly. Yep. There are some guys who, if you're a fan of baseball, even if they're on your biggest enemy team, you got to appreciate and love what they've done for the game, and they're part of the reason you hate that other team.
Right, exactly. It's like, me being a Rangers fan and to see Clark Gillies and John Potvin both pass away recently. And the Rangers have a pregame, a moment of silence for John Potvin. I think that about said it all, what it's all about.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't been to a Ranger game in quite a while. But do they still chant "Beat Your Wife, Potvin" at the Garden?
They chanted on the night where they had a moment of silence for Dennis Potvin's brother, who had just passed away. They did chant those old chants for Dennis Potvin during the game, which I didn't think was appropriate on that night.
I would agree. They were fun at the time,
right.
But we are 40 years later.
Yeah,
and you've only won one Stanley Cup, and I'm a Ranger fan. You only won one Stanley Cup. It's inappropriate.
Makes you wonder what parents are teaching their kids for 40 years, for that chant to still be here 43 years later. First came out.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's the kids who are chanting that. I think it's the old timers.
And it's the old timers, and I think some of the kids too. From what I've seen through the years, they pick it up. So becomes a family tradition.
At Yankee Stadium, we stopped chanting Halle Berry long ago.
I will tell you, in 74, when the Yankees played their home games at Shea Stadium, I go to some of the Yankees home games at Shea Stadium, and I can remember a guy sitting behind bunch of my friends and myself, and I guess he had it for you, and he was chanting out for Bobby Mercer throughout the whole game, "Mercer, no mercy. Mercer, no mercy." From the first inning to the ninth inning, as he continued to have a few throughout the game. We figured he had a few before he got to Shea Stadium too, but he was a Yankees fan. Yeah, that happens. I remember specifically that summer, even though I'm a Mets fan, going from the Bronx to see the Yankees probably a handful of times out at Shea Stadium. It was an interesting experience to see the Yankees play there and have Shea be their home field. Steve Greenberg.
Oh, yeah, I went to a few of those games as well.
And you were right there at Shea Stadium too. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
maybe we sat right near each other and we didn't know it back then in 74.
Well, we both had hair back then.
We both had lots of hair back then, no question about that. So, or as people say when they look at my high school picture, they said, "You had hair? Really? That much?" I did. Yeah. So you can look it up.
It faded over time.
Yeah, there you go. So, and it's on my face now instead of on my head, at least some of it. There you go. Steve Greenberg, happy Passover to you and yours.
Thank you, and happy holidays to all your listeners and viewers.
Thank you, Steve. We'll talk to you next time around. Steve Greenberg, Siena Polling Institute, Pollster at Siena, outside Albany here on the Cup of Joe Political Show, produced by Sharc Creative. I'm John Marino. We are Westchester Talk Radio.com, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, also by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube, and download our app. Take it with you 24/7. Anywhere and everywhere you go. It's called Westchester Talk.